Who's winning the Iran war? It's a question that has confounded everybody. And the answer keeps shifting by the hour. Even as Iran is actively seizing ships in the Gulf, the US has announced a ceasefire with Tehran, and that is the contradiction defining this moment. A ceasefire being declared at the top and an escalation unfolding on ground. Donald Trump has extended the Iran ceasefire, presenting it as an opportunity to push forward negotiations and avoid a wider regional war. But the details tell us a more complex story. There is no clearly defined timeline for the ceasefire. There is no agreement yet from Iran on core terms. And crucially, the US continues to enforce a naval blockade of the Iranian ports, which remain the central trigger for the current standoff. So while Washington calls it a diplomatic opening, Tehran is treating it as a pressure that has never really stopped. And that pressure is now being answered at the sea. Iranians' IRGC has seized 2 container ships attempting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, a route that is effectively under military watch. And one of those vessels sailing under a Liberia flag was headed directly to India, with its destination listed as the Mundra port in Gujarat. And according to ship tracking data, the vessel was intercepted mid-route, diverted towards Iranian coast after being declared as a violator. That detail matters because it signals that India is no longer just watching this crisis unfold, it is also directly exposed to it. This is not an isolated incident. In recent hours and days, multiple commercial vessels have been fired upon. Ships have been boarded and bombarded later by the armed personnel. Iran says that these actions are a response to ships attempting to cross what it considers as a restricted zone. So what are we seeing this, and what are we making of this as a conventional war as it unfolds? It is a confrontation which is being managed. Direct strikes may be paused, but strategic pressure and retaliation continues in parallel, and there is no clear winner emerging at the moment. With me on the show is Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. Also with us is Professor Swaran Singh, who's joining us. Professor Swaran Singh, let me begin by asking you, sir, if you look at all the details emerging in the past 24 hours, what are you making of where this war is headed?
Actually, both sides do want to end this war, and that's why this limited kind of situation of ceasefire, which is not strictly followed, is continuing, and major attacks are not happening against each other, but they are not able to find a face saver, and I think that is where right now the situation is in that sense. When we saw extension of the ceasefire, which itself stands violated, because once you put a naval blockade, that is as good as aggression in that sense. So fundamentally, both sides are desperately looking at an exit strategy and are not able to find it. And both sides increasingly will begin to and are already blaming the mediator, because mediator is the one which is supposed to create that exit strategy for the parties to conflict.
Right.
And it's not been able to do that. And that was a risky game that Pakistan got into, because once you start doing mediation for President Trump, who keeps changing his views almost on hourly basis, by the time you take his message to Tehran, he's already changed what he wants to do and say. So that risk Pakistan took, and it's now bearing that brunt, where obviously Tehran is openly saying they don't trust, and in fact they are angry with Islamabad. And we will notice increasingly now President Trump will also show his ire, his anger against Pakistan not being able to deliver that kind of exit strategy. And one quick point, I think in wars, there is never any winner. All sides are losers, and it's only relative loss that is significant. And America in last 80 years have not won any single war, clearly. So I think this is going to be one more example of the same kind.
Okay, that's fair, Ambassador. There's no clear winner in a war, but when you look at the current situation, when you assess the current situation, would it be fair to say that, US with its far superior military power is not winning this war? It's not winning clearly. It hasn't won from week one, and it's nowhere close to winning it today.
Well, let me put it this way. Iran is not winning the traditional, conventional battlefield contest, as the Israeli and American forces have demonstrated superior air power and have destroyed substantial part of Iran's conventional arsenal. However, Iran is winning the strategic war of endurance by controlling the Strait of Hormuz and forcing the global economy into a state of severe supply disruption. Tehran has forced a stalemate that forces its adversaries
Okay.
to consider the high costs of a prolonged conflict, which suits Iran's goal of regional survival and disruption of US influence.
All right, so the conflict is prolonging there with each passing day without any clear winner in the war. It seems like it's the common people across the world who are bearing the brunt by the way of high energy prices. That continues to be a trend across countries for that matter.